What is our purpose here as human beings? Are we meant to live the same experience over and over again? Or are we meant to transform our inner and outer world? Join me on this episode while I explore more on energy, consciousness, and the human experience. So to start, let's look at what the difference is between science and pseudoscience. It's important to know when we explore life, consciousness, and the fabric of our reality to know the difference between the two. For starters, science is based on empirical evidence, rigorous testing, the scientific method, peer-reviewed, while pseudoscience is based on untested claims, personal beliefs, often lacks peer review, and independent replication. It also relies on subjective, unverifiable data and observation. However, what studies have been labeled as pseudoscience that have tried to take a real look at the unknown and have been dismissed by mainstream science? Consciousness is an area with standing 1 foot in each world, the known and unknown. But how do we study consciousness and its relation to the human experience? One study called Consciousness, Attention, and Conscious Attention is a review article written by 3 Italian researchers. It discusses the relationship between consciousness and attention and how they interact in our perception of the world. Consciousness is the state of being aware of our surroundings and our own thoughts and feelings, while attention is the ability to selectively focus on specific stimuli in our environment. So, much like I discussed in episode 1, we are the observer and the participant. The article explains that attention is closely linked to consciousness because what we pay attention to determines what we are conscious of. The researchers discussed several findings about the relationship between consciousness and attention. For example, attention can enhance conscious perception. When we pay attention to something, we are more likely to become conscious of it. That is because attention enhances the processing of sensory information in the brain while making it more likely that we will perceive it consciously. Or, as you'll recall, the Baader-Meinhof phenomena. Consciousness and attention have different neural mechanisms. Although consciousness and attention are closely related, they involve different neural mechanisms in the brain. For example, the prefrontal cortex is more involved in attention, while the parietal cortex is more involved in consciousness. Conscious attention is a unique state. In this article, the researchers argue that conscious attention is a unique state that involves both consciousness and attention. In this state, we are both aware of our surroundings and actively paying attention to specific stimuli. So let's explore this at an even deeper level. Is the nature of our reality possibly all consciousness? Have you heard of the Global Consciousness Project? This is certainly a fascinating finding. This ongoing project involves the use of random number generators placed around the world to measure fluctuations in random data during significant world events, such as natural disasters or major political events. The project suggests that there may be a correlation between human consciousness and the behavior of random systems, which could have implications for understanding of the role of consciousness in the physical world. So recall from episode 1 the observer effect. Yet this seems to be an even greater scale. Are we collectively linked at a global level? And if we are, what does that mean for the future of our world and our life experiences, whether that means individually or collectively? Let's think about this from another theoretical perspective. What if our individual consciousness is a droplet of a greater connected consciousness? What would that mean in terms of our individual and collective lives? Collective consciousness is not new to science, and here's a few examples. The first is the 100th monkey effect, which is a term used to describe the idea that even when enough members of a group adopt a new behavior or idea, it can suddenly spread rapidly to the entire group, even those who have not directly learned or been taught it. This concept was first introduced by a researcher named Lyle Watson, who studied a group of monkeys on an island. One day, a young monkey started washing sweet potatoes in the river before eating them. Over time, more and more monkeys began to adopt this behavior, until suddenly, when the 100th monkey learned to wash its potatoes, the behavior seemed to spread instantly to all the monkeys on the island, even those who had not yet learned it. This theory has been applied to human behavior, suggesting that when a critical mass of people adopt a new behavior or belief, it can spread rapidly to the rest of society. Here's another one. Coral spawning is a natural phenomenon where corals release their eggs and sperm into the water column for fertilization. This event usually occurs once a year, typically after a full moon in the summer or fall, and can last for just 1 or 2 nights. Interestingly, there have been documented cases where coral spawning has occurred simultaneously in different parts of the world, even between corals that are geographically distant from one another. The synchronicity is thought to occur because corals are sensitive to environmental cues such as water temperature, light, and lunar cycles, which can trigger these spawnings. What's fascinating, though, is that through no physical connection, you can take a piece of coral from a specific coral species, place it across the world, and it'll spawn at the same time as all the others. Now, research has suggested the timing of coral spawning is controlled by a combination of genetic and environmental factors. But what if there's something else? What if there's a woven web of connection that's unseen and has yet to be identified? If monkeys can pick up a new idea and it spreads rapidly throughout their society, how does that also present to the human experience? Is there some unknown conscious link in the animal and human world? Are we just as connected, but completely unaware of it? To put this into another perspective, let's take a journey through history to May 6th, 1954, to a man named Roger Bannister. He became the first man to run a mile in under 4 minutes. He had been told by psychologists that it was impossible for an athlete to do, and that it was so dangerous he could die. Yet, this determined man proved a human could, in fact, run a mile under 4 minutes. And then something really interesting happened. It became something several others started to do. Roger Bannister shattered a collective mental barrier. So, what other collective mental barriers do we have on ourselves, our lives, our own capabilities to see and do things differently than the norm? How many people are holding back in fear of being too different, who have extraordinary abilities or gifts? What if our consciousness, our connection, is far greater than we fully understand? And what if our human potential is even greater? Beliefs shape our lives and our world. The belief that the minute mile was impossible sat in everyone's mind until someone dared to break through and prove them wrong. Beliefs shape how we view even the function of our own mind and consciousness. What if collectively we believed extraordinary things could happen to us as humans and our own evolution? What limits of ourselves would we be able to transform, or boundaries within our own psyche would we be able to push through? Let's look again at another unconventional view and explore psychics. Psychics, or individuals who claim to have supernatural abilities, to perceive or communicate with spirits, see the future or past, or access other dimensions have been documented throughout human history, dating back to ancient civilizations. For example, in ancient Greece, oracles such as the Oracle of Delphi were revered for their prophetic abilities and consulted by kings and leaders for their guidance. In ancient China, divination techniques were used to predict future events and guide decision-making. In medieval Europe, mystics and seers such as Nostradamus gained notoriety for their predictions of world events and disasters. During the Renaissance, spiritualism and occultism gained popularity among scholars and nobility and explored the boundaries of science and mysticism. In modern era, psychics and spiritualists have continued to attract followers, with famous examples such as Edgar Cayce, claiming to have abilities to communicate with the dead or access higher dimensions of consciousness. So, what is this? Why do people flock to psychics? In today's world, people try to attempt to learn the unknown. But who are these individuals? And why does this matter? Some are self-proclaimed, while others silently touch people's lives in extraordinary ways. Some people claim their lives are changed, while others don't. But what's the difference between those who do and those who don't? Could it come down to our belief systems, our connected consciousness? Remember the conscious observer effect in episode 1? What if the believer is the observer and the psychic is the light? Are we not energy, frequency, and vibration? What if the phenomena is a two-part story? What if the study of our consciousness is also twofold? We need the participant, but we also need the observer. Let's look again at this from a theoretical perspective. What if our capabilities as human beings expands because one person believed that they could? And so they did, which then gave others the permission to believe the same, and thus they stepped into the same transformation until it became the norm. So, what other aspects of our human experience can be explored, challenged, and bring to light when it comes to the conscious norm? Recently in our world, there has been the release of AI with a greater fear lurking behind it. The evolution of AI, and it becomes self-aware, sentient, and the doom of humanity. We've all seen the movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We can easily look at technology and fear its evolution and growth. Yet when it comes to our own consciousness, abilities, and evolution, we don't reflect the same views. We have a collective mental barrier. However, there are flickers of unknown explanations in our world, unknown experiences, sparks of unique individuals. So what if it comes down to belief, our perception that enhances consciousness? My question to you is, what makes the evolution of technology greater than our own possible conscious expansion? I'll part with you today with this. Are you living to your full potential or holding back your known gifts and abilities in fear of that social norm? Join me in the next episode as I explore more on consciousness, the metaphysical side of our reality, and the human experience. Thank you for joining me. I'm Tiffany. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can check out my website at tiffany-clark.com.